Did you know a baby once vanished from his crib and it became the most famous crime in American history? It all started on a Wednesday when Charles Lindbergh carried his sleeping son upstairs and tucked him into bed. It was March 1st, 1932, in the quiet Hopewell, New Jersey home of America's most celebrated aviator. By morning, the child's crib was empty, and the house bore the traces of a desperate struggle. A broken window, a ransom note demanding $50,000 in gold, and a nation suddenly gripped by fear. For weeks, the story dominated newspapers. Charles and Anne Morrow Lindbergh pleaded with the unseen abductors. A string of notes followed. A frustrated, charismatic stranger in the press, an intermediary named John Condon, began negotiating. The Lindberghs raised the money and delivered the gold certificates. Yet 3 months later, on May 12th, a boy's skull and bone fragments were found less than 10 miles from the family home. A medical examiner concluded the child had been killed by a blow to the head. The public mourned and demanded justice. The investigation was chaotic. Local police, state troopers, and federal agents clashed over jurisdiction. Political pressure was intense. The kidnapping of a national hero's child became a test of American law and order. Congress responded with the Federal Kidnapping Act, the Lindbergh Law, giving federal authorities new powers. Investigators chased leads across states and even into Europe. Suspicion eventually narrowed on a German immigrant named Bruno Richard Hauptmann. Hauptmann had a modest Bronx home and a history that made him stand out: a carpentry trade, recent unexplained cash, and ties to a deceased acquaintance, Isidor Fish, who had traveled to Germany with gold bills. In September 1934, police discovered a stash of gold certificates in Hauptmann's garage, notes that matched those paid in the ransom. Carpentry experts testified that wood from Hauptmann's attic matched the ladder used by the kidnapper. Handwriting analysts declared the ransom notes bore similarities to his script. He was arrested, tried in early 1935 before a courtroom packed with cameras and reporters, and despite his insistence that he'd been given the currency by Fish, he was convicted. In 1936, the state executed him. The official story was neat and decisive. Hauptmann had kidnapped and killed the child for ransom. But from the beginning, many doubted the neatness. Conspiracy theories coalesced around 3 lines of critique. First, evidence and procedure. Critics argued the case relied on circumstantial matches, wood grain comparisons, dubious handwriting testimony, and testimony from witnesses whose statements shifted under pressure. Defense lawyers claimed police had mishandled or suppressed evidence that might have pointed elsewhere. The discovery of ransom bills in Hauptmann's garage, while dramatic, raised questions about chain of custody and whether some bills had been planted or laundered through others. Second, the role of xenophobia and media. Hauptmann, a German immigrant, stood trial before a nation raw with suspicion of foreigners and before a press that demanded a culprit. The Lindberghs were national icons. The appetite for a swift resolution was ravenous. Observers suggested that prosecutors played to that hunger, prioritizing conviction over exhaustive inquiry. Third, alternative suspects and loose ends. Isidor Fish, who had left Europe with money and then died, loomed over Hauptmann's defense. Some investigators suspected organized or opportunistic criminals. Others proposed that the ladder and ransom might not prove a single perpetrator's guilt. Fringe theories even suggested tragic accidents or inside involvement, claims long dismissed but which fueled lingering doubt. Today, most historians accept that Hauptmann was at least complicit. The paper trail of marked money and the material links are persuasive. But the case remains a cautionary tale about how hysteria, imperfect forensics, and political pressure can shape justice. The Lindbergh kidnapping reshaped American law, sparked debates about press responsibility, and left a family scarred. Above all, it left a nation asking a hard question: can a courtroom truly reconstruct the truth when the world insists on a verdict first? And nearly a century later, the question still lingers. Was justice truly served? Or did a grieving nation simply need someone to blame? Because once a verdict is delivered, history rarely goes back to ask if it was right. If stories like this, where truth and doubt collide, fascinate you, make sure you subscribe. There's always another mystery waiting in the dark.